Lucy Irigaray J.E. Du Nous Towards a Culture of Difference represents a profound exploration of gender dynamics, identity, and the ways in which society constructs relationships. This work is not merely a call for social equality, but a philosophical and cultural manifesto, advocating for the recognition and celebration of sexual difference. Irigaray's approach transcends the demand for parity between genders and instead envisions a society that acknowledges and respects the unique identities and contributions of men and women. Her philosophical project aims to create a space where I and you can come together as we, forming a union that respects individuality and rejects hierarchical domination. Central to Irigaray's argument is the notion of sexual difference. She critiques traditional Western thought, which she views as predominantly phallocentric, for subsuming women's identities into male-dominated frameworks instead of seeking assimilation into a male-defined world. Irigaray advocates for a recognition of women as distinct subjects with their own identities, desires, and ways of relating to the world. Her vision is not to erase the differences between men and women, but to elevate these differences into a source of mutual enrichment and understanding. This requires rethinking cultural norms, language, and societal structures to accommodate and celebrate difference, rather than enforcing uniformity. The book addresses the relational dynamics between individuals, particularly focusing on how the I and you can establish a meaningful connection. Irigaray emphasizes that for true connection to occur, each party must retain their individuality and not be subsumed into the other's identity. This relational philosophy critiques traditional notions of unity that often lead to the domination of one over the other. Instead, Irigaray proposes a model of relationship where we is formed not through the erasure of difference, but through its affirmation. This framework challenges conventional gender roles and power structures, inviting a reimagining of relationships that are egalitarian and reciprocal. Motherhood is one of the key themes Irigaray explores to illustrate her ideas about sexual difference and relationality. She views motherhood as a unique and transformative experience that profoundly shapes a woman's identity. However, she also critiques societal attitudes that either idealize or devalue motherhood, often reducing women to their reproductive roles. For Irigaray, motherhood should be understood as a relational experience that fosters a deep connection between the mother and child, as well as between the mother and the broader community. This relational aspect of motherhood underscores her broader philosophical project of creating a culture of difference that values interconnectedness without erasing individuality. Irigaray also delves into the topic of abortion, examining it not merely as a medical or political issue, but as a deeply personal and ethical decision that reflects the complexities of women's lives. She argues that discussions about abortion must move beyond binary debates of pro-life versus pro-choice to consider the relational and existential dimensions of the decision. For Irigaray, abortion is tied to questions of autonomy, responsibility, and the recognition of women as moral agents capable of making complex decisions. This perspective aligns with her broader critique of societal structures that often fail to recognize women's subjectivity and agency. The AIDS crisis is another area where Irigarei's thought proves particularly poignant. Writing at a time when the epidemic was at its peak, Irigaray reflects on the crisis's implications for relationships, sexuality, and community. She critiques societal responses that often stigmatize those affected, while failing to address the underlying issues of relationality and care. For Irigaray, the AIDS crisis underscores the need for a culture that prioritizes connection, empathy, and mutual responsibility. Her reflections on this topic highlight the interconnectedness of individual and collective well-being, reinforcing her call for a culture of difference that values relationships built on respect and care. The beauty industry serves as another critical focus in Irigaray's exploration of gender and culture. She critiques how the industry perpetuates unrealistic standards of beauty that often reduce women to objects of visual consumption. For Irigaray, these standards not only undermine women's self-esteem, but also distort the relational dynamics between men and women. By emphasizing external appearance over inner qualities, the beauty industry reinforces a superficial understanding of relationships that fails to honor the depth and complexity of human connection. Irigaray calls for a reevaluation of cultural norms surrounding beauty, advocating for a perspective that values authenticity and individuality over conformity to societal expectations. Language is another crucial element in Irigaray's project. She argues that traditional language structures are inherently phallocentric, privileging male perspectives and excluding women's experiences. For Irigaray, creating a culture of difference requires developing a new linguistic framework that allows women to articulate their identities and experiences on their own terms. This involves not only challenging existing language norms, but also fostering creativity and innovation in how we use language to express relationality and difference. Irigaray's emphasis on language underscores her belief that cultural transformation begins with how we communicate and understand one another. Irigaray's vision extends to the broader societal structures that shape relationships and identities. She critiques institutions such as education, religion, and politics for perpetuating hierarchical and exclusionary practices that marginalize women. For Irigaray, creating a culture of difference requires transforming these institutions to promote inclusivity and reciprocity. This involves rethinking policies, practices, and cultural norms to create spaces where diverse identities can coexist and thrive. Her critique of societal structures reflects her broader commitment to building a world that values connection and mutual respect.